Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Our guest today is Dan Fisher. I want to welcome you to the show. Dan, let's get into some fun business stuff.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start by talking about your business. Can you let our listeners know what you got going on?
Yeah, so I started and run a company called Bottle Rocket Media. We're a video production company based out of Chicago that services Fortune 1000 customers and larger. And we do all sorts of video, animation, live action. And what I like to say to keep it really kind of broad and easy is we do everything but movies and broadcast television. We do
Got it.
commercials, we do marketing videos, a good amount of internal, a lot of B2B, a lot of product stuff.
Now, before we started recording, you spilled the beans a little bit on your strengths and your weaknesses in your business. And I think that is a great place to start this conversation because not everybody is good at everything. And that doesn't mean you can't have a thriving, successful business. So tell us a little bit about the evolution of your business and maybe even more specifically, how you've sort of divvied up certain tasks in your business, which has been, I assume, advantageous for everyone.
Yeah, so when we started the business, Brett, my business partner, and myself, we very much almost accidentally became clones of one another. I have a really strong editing and directing background. He has a very strong design and directing background. And so it was a nice complement for one another, especially when it was just two of us, a couple of cameras and a couple of computers. And as we grew and as we brought on more team members, we really did start to run the business as clones. Like we did finance together, we did HR together, and we did all these things sort of in tandem. Last year, we'd been talking about it for years, but last year we finally decided to pull the trigger. And what we realized was, in order for the business to grow at the speed with which we wanted it to, one of us was going to have to focus exclusively on sales. And that was not, like I said, it wasn't a surprise, but the results were a surprise because immediately we saw different results. I think, for anybody who's in a business, who's been part of a business, of course, it's ideal for, to have people focus on one thing and do that role great. We are a classic small business. There's 12 of us right now, with somewhere between 10 and 15 freelancers weekly. And so we don't have enough people to go around to do each job individually and focus. But in the area of sales, we knew that was almost an absolute, was mandatory. And we've really seen the results. So for, on Brett's side of the equation, he's found a lot of comfort in being able to focus on one thing and really do it well. Our numbers have definitely gone up. We've definitely seen a jump in the numbers. The experiment, as I like to call it, is a year old, and we've definitely seen results. On my end of the equation, it's been really interesting. My inbox is all project-based or team member-based. So I no longer wake up and check my email first thing because it's not a sales related email. So there's comfort in that. And it actually took me a long time to find my footing, surprisingly, because taking this one task off my plate changed, I guess, like the equilibrium of what my day-to-day looks like. And so it took me a long time to find where I fit in, even though by making this split, Brett focused on sales, that meant I have to focus on everything else. Something about that, there was still like a hole in my day-to-day. So it took me a while to get there. And now, we really are seeing results of switching that up.
One of the things that has been talked about quite a few times on this show, because it's so damn common, is the mindset shifts we have to make, especially when it comes to handing over maybe certain responsibilities, whether that's delegating or stepping down or moving over, accepting a new role. There are all of those psychological things that are going on within us, right? The warning bells that start sounding off saying, is this safe? Right? What are you doing? So I'm curious what type of mindset shifts you had to go through over these past, this past year or year plus, to probably even right beyond that, to even get to the place where you're like, okay, this is something we need to do.
So, wow, it's a great question. So I am constantly having to change my mindset or shift my mindset, because the business was born out of this idea that I would make my living creatively. And everybody, all of my colleagues, business owners or independent filmmakers or anybody in this business goes through this. And it starts with, hey, what can I do to support my creative habit or my creative desire? And sometimes it's go find somebody to hire me to be creative. Sometimes it's I'm going to go sell mortgages and take pictures on the weekend or whatever your hobby is. And then there's the rest of us that are trying to like combine the two. And I feel very fortunate in that I found a second love, and that is running a business, right? A lot of times you read about a CEO or an executive or business person in the traditional sense of the word, who spent their life crunching numbers and then they retired and they found out they were a fantastic painter or a guitar virtuoso. I'm a little bit the opposite. My parents are artists. I was raised to like go into the arts, and I started a business at 40. And at 40, I'm like, what have I been doing all my life? This is amazing. So it's taken me a long time to shift to the ultimate mindset shift, which is I no longer have to be the most creative person in the room. I'm here to run the business, right? And in saying that, what I'm a huge proponent of is, even though like I'm the owner of this business, Brett is the owner of this business, and together we are the bosses, at any given moment in the day, I work for somebody else on my team, right? I employ my producers, I employ my editors, I employ my designers. But if I'm acting as a director, I'm working for them. So I'm constantly shifting my mindset from like, I'm an owner to I'm a director and I'm working for my producer, or I'm an executive producer and I'm talking to the client. So it's like a constant shift. And more to your point, I think, uh, yeah, I'm a small business owner, so I do everything. Some days I'm ordering food for the office and I'm taking out the trash, and other days I'm sitting in with my CFO and we're trying to figure out what, forecast the next quarter. So there's a constant juggle between like what I want to do, what I should be doing, what I have to do, and how to make it all come together.
There is something that you said that I absolutely love. So I want to dive a little deeper into that for a moment. You probably didn't even realize it just slid past so smooth. But the mindset shift that we have to make, because oftentimes as business owners, especially when you start to get up into, CEO role, or you're in some type of leadership position with a whole team of people underneath you, there is this tendency to just wear the hat of I'm the head honcho. But when we're working with clients, customers, right? But especially with clients, we're working for that client. So while we still are sort of the expert, if you will, and we're providing a certain high level of product or service for that individual, as much as we're still the business owner, we are also working for that individual. And there is a bit of back and forth that needs to occur in a really empowered way for it to really work great. And what I've seen with more common with newer business owners, is sometimes they have some old associations, like the employee sort of association. And then the client could be a terrible client from hell, right? And they still have this mentality that I have to sort of jump through these hoops for that particular client. They're not wearing the business owner hat per se. Or like I mentioned, right, the people who have sort of worked themselves up and now everybody beneath them is just sort of the minions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're sort of like that arrogance factor where they forget, no, you still are being paid by the client. So I'd love to speak to that a little bit. You can speak from your perspective because it sounds like you've got a pretty good grasp on that, and you found sort of your own inner alignment with being the different roles within your own business.
So I'm famous for joking that saying this is the perfect business if it weren't for clients. And I can make that joke because I love all of my clients. We really do have a nice rapport and a sense of respect. So we've always operated under the principle of let's surround ourselves with people that are really smart and really talented and get out of their way. And so for me, what's an ideal engagement is something like we get a new client, we introduce them to the team, and I back up and I just watch and let things happen, right? In my business, right, I would never walk into an auto shop and tell a mechanic how to fix my car. Right? I don't know anything about cars. I know how to drive them. That's it. In my business, we have two kinds of clients. The client that says, you guys are creative. You guys make videos all the time. We want to make a video and tell us what you think is the best thing to do. And then there are people that, maybe they are super creative and maybe they do have a good idea of what they want. Awesome. I love it. There are also clients that think they know, but don't. And so I've had a lot of success in tough love with clients, in saying no. I guess I know how to do it appropriately because it hasn't backfired on me. But I really think as whether you're using an independent contractor or using an entire company, I really think it's our duty to tell the client when they're wrong because they're hiring us to do that. So for me, those are the two kind of things that I put together for every project is like, let's let the smart, talented people do their work, with the client, alongside the client, behind the scenes, for delivery to the client, and let's inform the client so they know what we're doing, what we're getting, and also tell them when they're wrong. And we don't get it right 100% of the time. And so sometimes we miss the mark. And so we go back and we fix it and we create it differently, or it might be a different edit or whatever it is, depending on what it is. But for the most part, if we bombard them with information and bombard them in a professional way, in a nice way, bombard them with information and let them know what we're doing at each step of the way and let them know how it fits into their picture, we generally have really good success in like I love to say, and I'll say it one more time, let the talented people do their work.
So I want to just say, because I think that this is such a valuable topic, that as someone who is damn good at what you do, you reference this, right? You're essentially the expert and you respect and you value your client, but sometimes you do have to interject. Right? Like
Yeah.
I'll say, I've said it before to clients, I'm not going to powder your ass. I'm going to love you. I'm going to support you, but I'm going to call you out too if I can
Yeah.
see that you're getting in your own way. And there's something to be said about working with a professional or company, right, that's willing to do that. There's a sense of integrity, right? We go to the dentist or the doctor or whoever, right, because they have a level of expertise.
Right.
And we still honor and respect ourself, our values, our own sort of intuition sometimes, right? But you don't go there and say, oh, I'm going to do the checkup. I'm going to do the
Right.
cleaning, right? You're going there because they have a skill and a knowledge that can support you. And as business owners, we need to own that.
Right. Right. I mean, yes to everything you said. If I didn't communicate it properly, what I would say is that my business is one of the few businesses where people will come in and question your expertise, for better or worse, right? My competition could be somebody's nephew that just graduated film school, or it could be, a big time Hollywood director who's decided to work in my space, right? Like the competition is everywhere and all over the place. And so, when that happens, we just have to take that deep breath and figure out, what's the best way to approach in order to bring it back to reality. I just finished a project not that long ago where the client, I'm going to quote, said, "Well, my husband's a documentarian, so I what I'm asking you to do, he said we can do, so we should definitely do it." And my team was like, "Well, that's not a coherent idea." And they really felt strongly, so we tried it, and the truth is somewhere in the middle, and so went through an extra round of revisions to get there, but we got there. But those are the types of things that happen to me. Again, you don't go to the doctor, you don't go to the mechanic, usually don't tell your plumber how to fix the thing. But when it's since creative is so subjective, people feel like, I saw a movie, I went to film school, I did X, Y, and Z, so therefore and here's the rub. I want that input. I just want it, I want it level set so that if it doesn't work for their idea, which is the irony, I'm I want to be able to say, this doesn't work for what you've asked for. You asked for X, and so I'm going to defend your idea. And I do a fair amount of that.
I would be willing to bet that there are probably several people listening, whatever industry they're in, that can relate to this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we ask a fairly straightforward set of questions at the beginning of every project, and what those questions, the answers to those questions really develop the idea. Like, who's watching it? What do you want them to feel? Some very basic stuff. And once we've you know, figured out, really boiled that idea down to its essence, then my allegiance is to that idea, not to the client, right? I'll make it fit within brand guidelines. I'll make it work as discussed, but it's really the idea that I have to protect. Otherwise, the messaging will be off, and then we'll get to the finish line and they'll say, this doesn't communicate what we want. So a lot of it just is that conversation of like, all right, you asked for X. Now we're doing Y. Y is different from that. Are you changing the scope? Are you changing the message? Are you changing the deliverables? What's changing? And if they want to change, of course, we can change it 1,000 times. But I just want to make sure that they're getting what they want.
So I want to shift gears just a little bit. We did talk a little bit already about some of the mindset stuff that you've had to work through as you're growing and expanding your business. And I'm curious if there is maybe one mindset obstacle that really was a challenge for you in your business that you had to overcome to get to the level that you're currently at?
Hmm. I would say I would say there are two, they're kind of similar. I don't know if this is going to answer the question, so you can redirect me. But the first one is like, so kindness is one of our core values. And I think there have been times where I've let kindness affect my decision making. And not to say like you need to be ruthless or any, old school mentality like that, but there's a way to be firm and kind and make the right business decision. And you want to be kind but not necessarily nice in some instances, I think, is the expression that I've heard. And so I think I needed to get out of that. I think it took me a long time to see myself as an owner or even a leader, because it did start so organically. It was, hey, I need to figure out a way to support my family, and I have this skill set, and I have a camera. Great, I have a business, and it grew so organically that I think that was one thing, is to really see myself as a leader and to not be so nice. And then I think the other thing, which I know every small business owner I know goes through this, is don't let perfection be the what's the term? Don't let perfection be the what is the term? Don't let perfection be the evil of good, or something like that. Like, if you're, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but if you spend so much time to make it perfect, you will miss the opportunity to do great work.
Got it. So, two good takeaways there. And I have seen that. Obviously, I've been working with business owners on mindset related challenges for a very long time. And there is a tendency to, especially for those of us that really are at our core, we're really kind hearted people. And you're growing your business. Now it doesn't matter. It's contractors that you're hiring, or employees, or even sometimes we talked about clients that maybe are not the right fit. There is that inner conflict because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. We don't want to let that person down or let that person go. And we have to have a really empowering shift within ourselves where we recognize that if it's not the right fit for us, it's probably not the best fit for them either. And that we're not actually doing anyone any favors by perpetuating a negative
Yeah.
situation.
Yes, absolutely. And part of that, I would say, is you have to find a way, and this goes hand in hand with what you're saying, to really just kind of be honest, brutally honest all the time. If you start pulling punches because you're afraid of hurting somebody's feelings, then that stuff just grows and festers, and it just becomes a hot mess.
Yeah, so true. So true. And the other piece about the perfectionism, it is said that perfectionism is somewhat of an overcompensation, if you will, for feelings of insecurity. And when we get so overly fixated on the details, there's oftentimes, if we're willing to look at it, fears of ridicule or judgment, some type of insecurity is being triggered, some sense of unworthiness. There's always some deeper stuff going on there. And if we can be willing to do our inner work and clean that stuff up, what we're going to find is that it's not so much about perfection, it's about greatness. And that we sort of make peace with our imperfection and still know that we're able to create something really fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, well said. That's really a great way of putting it. In a practical sense. So I'm addicted to my to-do lists, right? I have, a to-do list for each hat I wear. Like there's a finance one, there's an HR one. Like I love my to-do list. If it's not on there, it likely won't get done. But what I've noticed is that and I'm sure this is a result of phones and just the digital environment that we are in all day, every day. There's a kind of person out there, and I have several on my team, that the to-do list is actually their God, right? And they have to get things checked off the to-do list. I'm not a to-do list person by nature. I use it as a tool, but there are people that want the to-do list to be empty at the end of every day. And there's a stress associated, not with the tasks, not with doing the job well, but with checking off the to-do list. And it's exactly what you just said. It's like that obsession or that concern for checking things off the list gets in the way of doing great work.
Absolutely. This has been a fantastic conversation, Dan. I want to make sure that
really.
our listeners know how they can connect with you. So can you share the URL, your website for your business,
Sure.
and anywhere else that you'd like to direct people to?
Sure. Our website is bottlerocketmedia.net. That's probably the best place. We're also for sure on Instagram, BottleRocket312, Chicago area code. We're on LinkedIn, Bottle Rocket Media. We're on Facebook, Bottle Rocket Media. And I'm in all those places too. So
Awesome.
not hard to find me.
Awesome. So super fun conversation. Thanks again, Dan. Do appreciate you having you here with us.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
And of course, got to thank all of our listeners. We're doing this for you. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.